All right. Good morning. Good morning, Facebook. Welcome to another show. I am so excited to host this morning's The Business Heroes podcast. And yes, as you can see, it's me. It's me without my best friend, my husband Victor. He is not able to be here with us this morning. However, he told me to go forward with the show, and so I'm so glad for that. And we miss you, Victor. I'll say it on behalf of all the audience. We can't wait till you're back again. Nevertheless, we could not have this show. Okay. Listen, a lot of people are experiencing burnout and pain, and they're struggling and they're caring for people they didn't think they'd have to care for. And so if that sounds like you or someone you know, right now, you just need to get on the phone, get on your computer, invite as many people as you can, because we have an amazing presenter today, a wonderful entrepreneur, wonderful person who's going to be talking to us about how we can take care of ourselves, okay? What caregivers need to know so that they will not burn out and be out. Okay. And so I hope you're going to join that show. But for those of you who are coming on for the first time, my name is Mia Pyle, and I usually have my husband here with me, Victor Pyle. And we started this journey because once upon a time, not that long ago, I suffered from a nervous breakdown, as people would say. And this is after having been a principal, a teacher, traveling to over 12 countries, building churches, helping people. And yet I found myself ill and in a behavioral health hospital and suicidal. And I know that it's because of many of the things you're going to learn today I did not know at the time. And so I really hope that you'll be able to get that person here on the show so that they can hear it. Listen, there's going to be a way for you to support and opt in at the end. So you want to stay as long as you can or come back for the replay, whatever you need to do. All right. And so I just want to talk to you a little bit about the person that is going to be on the show this morning. And so I am going to just share her bio with you, and you're going to love it. Okay. So this is a healthcare expert, master in healthcare management. Her name is Mary Elaine. She is a healthcare expert who has nearly 20 years of healthcare, pharmaceutical sales, and marketing experience with neuro rehabilitation, hospitals, and home health companies, as well as 20 years as a healthcare provider working with children and adults. Where? In schools, home care, hospitals, nursing homes, and memory care settings, as well as independent and assisted living facilities. She has a master's in business of administration degree in healthcare management from Boston University. Isn't that awesome? Aren't you getting excited about her already? I know I am. Well, I was already excited. But anyway, let's keep going. Listen to this. As part of the sandwich generation, she assisted her parents in choosing qualified home care services that match their needs, as well as finding quality adult daycare program for her mother who had Alzheimer's, and providing financial support to meet their social and emotional needs. I know this is resonating with some of you. You're going to watch this show and you know exactly what it feels like to care for a parent who has Alzheimer's or dementia or some other ailment, and you didn't know you'd be in this position. Let's keep going. Listen to her bio. During this process, she realized that there are huge groups of people seeking guidance around their parents' healthcare and wellness needs as they retire in record numbers daily. Mary Elaine has decided to assist these family caregivers just as she did her own parents. That's awesome. Caregiving is an immense responsibility, and given the sensitive information and conversations needed for things to go smoothly, it can make it awkward and uncomfortable to have these family conversations. You've been there, right? You are there, perhaps. Mary Elaine's health and wellness programs, such as the Caregiver Podcast, Caregiver Lifeline Summits, and her ongoing Facebook group, Caregiver Lifeline Community, and Caregiver Lifeline Academy, are full of resources, strategies, expert information, and interviews. A comprehensive website and blogs are also full of health and wellness information for caregivers and those they are caring for with your family in mind, okay? She's creating useful strategies and resources, checklists, expert interviews, summits, academy programs, all to enhance the caregiving journey. It says Mary Elaine is passionate about traditional and alternative healthcare products and services that help achieve optimal wellness that are of value to caregivers and the ones they care for. And I am so excited. So, listen, you have got to get your family members on here. There are many of us who are in that position, or we will be headed to the position of being a caregiver for our family members or for a child. And so I'm so excited to bring this person to you today. And without further ado, I'm going to get her on here. And I know that you can clap for her with me from whatever space you're watching this in to say that she is truly a business hero. And that's what you're watching, the Business Heroes podcast, where we interview entrepreneurs and high-performing professionals that are pursuing profit, purpose, and passion so that they can affect the world for good. And that is exactly what Mary's doing. Let's get her on. Good
Hi,
morning.
Mia. Hi, how are you? It's so an honor to be here today.
Yes, thank you so much, Mary. I'm so glad you're here. As I was reading your bio, I was just like, man, this
Thank
is so
you.
amazing, so very timely, especially as we're on the ends, I would say, of the pandemic, if we can call it that, the ends.
Mm-hmm,
A lot of people have actually found themselves in that caregiving position
mm-hmm.
unexpectedly. And so I'm so glad to have you on here. And Mary, I just want to right away just tell people a little bit more about yourself, like where you, Mary Elaine, where are you from? you know um and how did you get into this space a little bit more? Like, you talked about your parents, but what gave you that burning desire?
Great question. Let me go back a little. Um, my grandparents were striking in the coal fields in southern Colorado.
Mm,
And because of that, they were moved from company housing into a tent colony. So, what my grandmother's oldest son became sick, and the mining officials wouldn't allow my grandmother to take her oldest son by train 14 miles to get health care, and that child passed away. So,
wow.
because of that family history and the fact that I was a caregiver for both my parents, um, really propelled me into this space. So, it's really a family legacy of working with caregivers, and I would like to advocate for caregivers and for people without health care.
Hmm.
My journey started in June of 2005 when my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Hmm.
And she was doing well until like late summer of 2005. And she initially fell and broke her collarbone and went to rehab. And a short time later, when my parents were coming to visit me, as dad was closing the back door, mom fell again in the driveway and broke her pelvis. And again, she went to rehab. And at this point, I figured out that dad might not be the best caregiver for mom.
Right.
And I recommended that we put mom on in a memory care unit until we could decide how we were going to bring mom home
Right.
with 24/7 care,
Right.
because dad was in denial, obviously, and wasn't really taking care of mom the way she should have been taken care of. So we put mom in a memory care unit. Dad initially was taking mom home without me knowing it. He had a friend build a steep ramp outside the front door. So if mom had attempted to go down that ramp with her walker or was unsecured in her wheelchair, I just don't want to think about what might have happened.
Wow.
And so I would go to work not knowing if I was going to be getting a phone call to say one or both of my parents were seriously injured or killed.
Mm,
And so 2 days before Christmas, welcome to my nightmare, I
wow.
went to court with mom, my attorney, and dad's attorney to start the guardianship process.
Okay.
And the judge could clearly see that mom needed a lot of support. So he ordered that both my parents undergo neuropsychological evaluations by two separate neuropsychologists.
Okay.
So by the time that we received Dad's results of his neuropsychological evaluation, it was pretty clear that he would not be a good caregiver for Mom.
Right.
So the end of April, both of our attorneys sat Dad and I down and asked us what we wanted to do. And after a lengthy discussion of pros and cons of different scenarios, Dad finally relented and agreed that he would bring Mom home with 24/7 care. I mean, Mom wanted to be home. I wanted Mom home. But she had to come home with 24/7 care. So we actually did that on May
Right.
22nd, their 58th wedding anniversary. And
Wow.
it was then that my father realized he could not have done it alone.
Mm.
So my parents had like all of their legal, medical, and insurance and final wishes completed. However, I wasn't expecting to go to court, hiring an attorney, and going to court. But I'm glad that I did because I wanted to make sure Mom was safe and would have an extended quality of life because she deserved that. And Mom was an LPN, so obviously
Right.
she felt like I was the only one that could really advocate for her. So that's what I did. And I'm forever grateful that I did do that.
I want to ask you a question about this because this is serious, and for
Yeah.
viewers that are watching and listening on, like we're all just like, wow. I can say for myself, like, so just to be sure with the court process, what you're saying is that because your dad was in denial and he felt like I can take care of her, you needed to kind of get legal support to be able to say, no, dad,
Mm-hmm.
I know you want to take care of her, but you're not in that position. And so let us work this out. And because it was difficult, that's the route you had to take. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because Adult Protective Services wouldn't step in because I was part of the family, and they
Right.
figured that if anybody would be able to stand up for Mom would be me.
Right.
So, yes, I had to hire an attorney, and I had to go to court 2 days before Christmas uh, with Mom because I was really frightened that Dad would inadvertently harm Mom and
Right.
himself in some way. So the only resource I had was to go through the legal process.
Wow. Wow. Now, for other viewers looking on, because there are some people that are watching this or they're going to watch this, and they honestly may have to go the same route. Is this something, and we're not aware, like, are you the only child for your parents, or were there other siblings involved that you had to, navigate that portion through?
Great question. My brother died when he was 15, so I was
Okay.
the only child that could step up for Mom.
Okay. Wow.
And
Wow.
because of my healthcare background and working in with adults in different settings like independent and assisted living and memory care units, um, I felt like that the only way that I could have a say, if you will, in helping Mom was to go through the legal process because there was no other way I could move like Mom into my house without um, upsetting my father and making the situation worse.
I see
So
what you're saying. And this is really important because you've worked in these spaces, and so you've seen where families have had to figure out, who's going to take care of this person, how
mhm,
should it be done, who has the say as to
mhm,
what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. And from my limited understanding, and please shed light on this for us, um power of attorney is the word that comes to mind. So
mhm.
in the situation of your family, is it that your dad was the automatic power of attorney, and that is why you needed to get that support as well, because he was already in that position to say this is how she'll be taken care of without the steps that you took?
Yes,
Okay.
basically. And also because he was mom's spouse, obviously. Yes, he did have the first say about what would happen for mom. And the only route I could go, because I wasn't a medical or a durable power of attorney, I had to go through the legal process in order to be able to help mom. I hope I'm remembering this correctly. However, well, mom was still in one of the rehab centers. They out and they would ask her directly who she wanted to take care of her. And she did mention my name. And I thought,
Mm-hmm.
well, okay, mom, we're in this together now. And
Okay.
if, this is the way I can bring you home safely. So, just be patient with me because this is going to take a while. I don't know how long. I want you home like dad does, but you need to come home with 24/7 care because you need that support.
Right.
And I really felt honored in a way that she did
Right.
mention my name, and that
Right.
because she knew that I would be able to advocate best for her.
Right.
And I thought, well, then if you want me to do it, then let's just go through this process, and hopefully the judge will see what the neuropsychological results of the evaluations are, and we can make a better determination. And dad
Mary,
and
I'm not
daddy
sh-
will be
the internet
taking
seems to be
care of
breaking up.
mom.
The internet broke up just a bit, and I'm not sure if viewers were able to hear that last part. Can you hear me well? I know sometimes with
Yes, I
technology
can.
that okay, good. Sometimes with technology, we're all we all know that this happens, but there were some breaks there, and I know you were saying some important. Mom chose you to be that person that could give her the best care, and that you all were just hoping that the
Hmm.
judge would rule in your favor, that you would be able to step in as
Hmm.
that person, as her advocate, um, to be able to help her in the ways, or and to advocate and establish the type of care that she was going to need. Wow, did I get it
Hmm.
right? That sounds like, man,
Yes, you did.
that's a lot of guts, Mary Elaine. That's a lot of guts, because I mean, how did that, like, with your dad, once he saw that you all had made the right decision, like, what was it like, kind of, walking with him now that it had gotten to I don't know if the word is litigation, but it gotten to that point where, okay, we had to bring in legal services. How are you all able to kind of bounce back from that as a family?
That's a great question. I will be honest. Dad said that if I did go through the guardianship process, that he would disown me, and I said, "Well, that is up to you. I still feel like I have to advocate for mom, so I'm going through the guardianship with or without your approval.
Right.
I, I felt it was better in for mom's benefit to um, I guess I would rather be disowned than not to provide the care for mom which she needed. And um, after that, I think dad, since he realized that he couldn't do it alone, I think the big part of his reluctance was that he didn't want people coming in and out of the house, which
Mm-hmm.
I could understand. However, he wasn't able to take care of mom in all of her, like, eating and bathing and dressing and all of those things, activities of daily living, we call them.
Right.
So she needed to have people who could best help her do all those activities of daily living. And yes, it may have been uncomfortable for dad. However, I think after a while, he um, could see that mom needed that help and that she wasn't, uh, she had changed, I guess. It's
Right.
really hard to be married that long and not want to have your spouse be able to do certain things. But it was clear, even from mom's evaluation, that her Alzheimer's had was pretty severe, and yeah, I think if dad had been more willing, they at mom was evaluated by a neuropsychologist from Spalding Hospital, and
Right.
they um, do have like an outpatient clinic where they would have had like an occupational therapist, physical therapist, speech therapist, working with mom and dad to show dad how to best take care of mom. However, that route we could not do because dad really wasn't um, able
Right.
to provide the care.
Right. And when you're saying not able, is it also that he himself was suffering with some health issues that needed to be addressed?
Um, he ended up having memory problems a few years later. Um,
Okay.
it because he was actually in denial that mom had the diagnosis,
Right.
she wouldn't have been safe with him
I hear you.
because she already had fallen twice and broke her collarbone and her pelvis. And um, who knows what might have happened if
Right.
he brought mom home and had her go down that steep ramp outside the front door.
Right.
I don't know. I just know it would not have been a good outcome.
I hear what you're saying. And thank you so much for your transparency in this. I know as other people are watching or will watch, this is making lots of sense for them. And it can be so difficult to have to
Mhm.
make hard decisions because these are your parents. It's not someone else's parents, it's your family. And so even you yourself are in the midst of this, seeing your parents in a way that you haven't had to, and having to
Mm.
interact with them and navigate. And so I want you to tell us more, like, so now you go through this situation with your parents, and you're able to get your mom the care that she needs, the care she deserves. And like, how did you then say, you know what, I am going to establish this amazing organization that you have that's going to help people walk through this type of journey? Like, and then what were the steps to bring that together?
Great question. About a year and a half ago, I wanted to do a Caregiver Summit, and I was working with a company at the time. I thought I was going to work primarily with baby boomers,
Hmm.
and then there was um, the person that was helping me put on the summit at the time recommended to do caregivers. And I'm looking back, that was a great choice because I had been a caregiver in the past for both my parents. So I felt that I could start advocating for caregivers. So I started with summits, and then I started a membership site for caregivers so that they can have like all the resources in one place so that it would be easier for them to have access to it. So they have access to the 45 speakers from the December 2021 conference and the April 22 conference as well. And then there's resources like for grief. There's information about Medicare, Medicaid. Here in Colorado, they have what is known as the Blue Book, and they list like all of the, or many of the independent assisted living, memory care units, long-term care facilities and group homes, and I believe adult daycare centers for Colorado. And then there's about 10 or 12 other states that there's a Blue Book for. And it's just a good resource to know exactly. I mean, they rate them, if you know, and so it gives a great starting point for families to get the information. So my goal is to, I mean, caregivers are overwhelmed, stressed, and burnt out. So, but everybody's caregiving journey is different.
Yes.
So if anybody joins the community on a monthly or a yearly rate, then what happens is they can tell me what they're going through, and I can put those resources in the membership site. So because as a speech pathologist, I had to do a lot of research on some of the disorders my clients had. So I would rather take on responsibility and find the resource for you and give it to you, so I can not only supply it to you as an individual, but for everyone else in the community. So it's really a supportive place where you can have access to other caregivers. You can have access to the experts that I've been working with, as well as myself, so that you can have all this information in one spot, because caregivers don't have time to be looking it up online.
Right.
And my goal is I can also help them with health sharing so that they can reduce some of their healthcare costs, even if a person's on Medicare. So if there's any way that I can, help, that's what I'm doing. And then if anybody needs additional support with mind body techniques, I have the Caregiver Lifeline Academy, and I can help with like the caregiver stress, overwhelm, and burnout, so that you can kind of reclaim all of those inner resources that you have, so you can have a better life, a more productive, purpose-filled life for yourself and for the one that you're caring for.
Wow, this is so amazing, viewers. I hope you are hearing this. This is amazing. So, what you've put together is basically, I would say, an ecosystem, really. That's what it sounds like to me. It's a place where caregivers can not only find respite, but they can also find encouragement. They can find resources. They can have access to highly trained professionals and experts that have not only studied this field, but they're applying what they've learned and they are living it as well. This sounds amazing. There's even ways for you to be able to mitigate your costs and doing the health share as being a part of your community. And this is like an ongoing support. I know that many caregivers that I come across, a lot of times they say they feel alone. They feel like they don't have anyone they can connect with or talk to. They feel like, no one really understands. And here you have people coming together to be able to support one another. This is incredible. This is really great. And so I heard you say people also have access to trainings and teachings. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I know you have like your Facebook community, you have speakers come on there. And what are some of the things you're excited about, even that you've shared with caregivers that you were like, man, I'm so glad this was in the summit. Can you talk about those things?
Yes, thank you. Since the end of February, I've been taking a lot of classes on mind body techniques, and I've had a coach who has taken me through these techniques, and they are really powerful. They've been life-changing for me. I wish that I had these when I was working with both my parents, but it's really made a dramatic difference for me in terms of learning how to change my communication, change my strategies and my values so that I can operate from a better, more purposeful life. And it's been life changing and transformative in the sense that it's giving me a totally different perspective on how to view my interactions with everyone around me and how I can better assist them to achieve what I have learned by working with me one-on-one. And it's just very individualized. It's all confidential.
Right.
I mean, I'm a speech pathologist like you had mentioned earlier. So I'm bound by the HIPAA laws,
Right.
and I'm also bound. I mean, if I suspect any type of like abuse or mental health crisis,
Right.
um, I'm mandated by law to report, and which makes sense. I
Right.
mean, if I have access to that information, then I'm like I said, mandated to report. And I have never been in that situation.
Right.
However, I know that that is one of my requirements. So it would have everything about you up to that point is very confidential, and it's all individualized. I look at your specific situation, and where I can best help you put in or reclaim those resources that you have within inside of you and kind of reorder it so that you can have a transformation as well. And I think it's really exciting to be able to offer those programs because caregivers need to understand that they can't and they shouldn't, um, not really good words, feel guilty for taking self-care. It's really important. They have to really feel themselves first so that they can help like their loved one. And I think it's these strategies and are powerful in the sense that they give you back that self-care that you really need in order to be a better caregiver.
Man, this is awesome. I'm so glad you're sharing this and touching on this, and it's something that happens, and that is, caregiver burnout, and therefore
Hmm.
sometimes caregiver abuse, right? And abuse can happen on multiple levels, where because we're burned out, because we're not taking care of ourselves, we are actually abusing ourselves, right?
Hmm.
And that's where the burnout is coming in, not having those
Exactly.
good boundaries put in place to take
Hmm.
care of ourselves. But in addition to that, because of what we're experiencing, we find ourselves saying things perhaps that we didn't want to say to that parent or child or person that we're caring for.
Hmm.
And God forbid, even reacting in ways that we wouldn't have thought, just because we haven't slept or because we haven't had good nutrition. We haven't had a good opportunity to have social interactions with people that love us and care for us and feed our spirit. And so this is a really serious issue, and it's something that does go on behind closed doors, and a lot of people don't want to talk about it, but I'm so glad you're shining a light on that aspect. And we're saying, it doesn't have to be that way. If you have found yourself in a situation
Hmm.
where you are burned out and you are now snapping off and things are going wrong in your home, there is help. There are things that can be done so your experience doesn't get worse. It can actually improve, and that's by being a part of the Caregiver Lifeline community, connecting with Mary and seeing what options you have, so that your experience can be better as a caregiver. This is exciting. Mary, I know we're getting close to the end of our show, but I want you to share with us. You have 3 care keys that you wanted to share with people who are watching today or who will watch in the future. What are these care keys that we need to be aware of so that we can have a better experience?
Great question. The first is organization. You need to have a dedicated calendar
Mm.
for daily, weekly, and monthly routines, and
Mm.
for yourself and for your loved one. And you need to evaluate and update those routines on a regular basis so that you can change what needs to be changed and then just become much more efficient and effective with your caregiving. And you can add such things as your doctor's appointments, your entertainment, your respite care, and any other engagements for your loved one. As part of organization, then you should also have a system of medication management so that your loved one is getting the right medication at the right time. And the third organizational strategy is to keep a journal, a daily journal of what your loved one did and how he or she responded to social or environmental stimuli, because all that information would be extremely useful when going for doctor's appointments or, heaven forbid, an ER visit. And then planning is the second caregiving key. And there's three strategies for planning, and that is to get to know the needs of your loved one. So look at things such as um, the person's medical condition or conditions, looking for moral and medical support online or in the community, and also looking for any respite and long-term care options available to your loved one, because it's essential really to know how your loved one's condition or conditions will change over time, what the amount of care that your loved one would need. And the third is just to make sure that you understand what care options are available in your loved one's community. The second planning strategy is really to prepare for any likely event that your loved one may experience. So you want to make sure that you plan each one of those events step by step and be able to plan in advance what kind of steps that you're going to take prior to any event occurring. And the most important thing is just having an emergency folder or binder with a lot of information. Um, for example, prescription information, you want to know, like, have the identification and insurance information, the doctor and pharmacy contact information. You want to have, like you said, the medical power of attorney and any care directives that your loved one needs. And if you put the emergency binder with the your daily caregiving journal, that would be so much very helpful in terms of when there's a doctor visit or an ER visit. So having all of that information available is critical. And then the third key is really self-care. And so
Yes.
you want to find a supportive community where you can find other caregivers who are going through what you're going through, understand the depth of what you're going through. The second self-care strategy is really to accept offers of help.
Come on.
I know, I know. And ask for really specific support about what you really need when you're caregiving. And because people want to help, but they need to know exactly what you need help with. So if that's going to the grocery store, picking up a child at a sporting event, or, bringing over a dinner or something like that. The third self-care strategy is to take respite breaks often. And I know that's really hard. Self-care is really extremely hard for caregivers. Um, but you need to do that. You need to take an hour and just journal, read, make medical and dental appointments for yourself, call a family member, a friend, whatever you need to do. And you need to take this respite care because you need to be more present with the one that you're caring for so that you can be at the top of your game.
Yeah.
And I really can't stress enough, give yourself credit for everything that you're doing for your loved one. You're doing the best that you can. One of the toughest jobs there is.
Yes.
And I really think that organization, planning, and self-care are all intertwined, and you need each one of those pieces in order to have a more manageable, successful, and rewarding caregiving journey.
Wow, this is so, so good. I love it, love it, love it. I was writing down some notes. I had a question. There was a part where you said planning for an event. Could you talk a little bit more about that? When you say event, do you mean in the event of like a fall? Because you had spoken about a fall, but then I didn't know if you
Yes,
meant like planning for final arrangements as an event, or like, could you just clarify on that part?
great question. It's anticipating the likely hypothetical situation that might affect your loved one. So if it's a fall, or if something else happens with your loved one that you weren't really expecting, it's at least you're thinking through every possible, like thinking about like a fall risk. So picking up rugs off the floor,
Mhm.
moving furniture around so they can move with like their walker, um, having like the safety bars in the bathroom,
Right.
anything. You don't want to, you want to think about every situation that might happen for your loved one based on their medical condition or conditions, so that you're more prepared for it when that situation occurs. And if it does occur,
Mhm.
at least you are better prepared
Mhm.
for those events in the future.
This
Does that
is
make it clear?
great. Oh, yes, very clear. Thank you for that.
Okay.
Very clear. And I love the point that you made on the end. I mean, you and I were both huge advocates of self-care, and it just made me think about the importance, like you were outlining, of being able to journal and you said, be willing to accept offers of help. Like I thought that was amazing what you said, because when I think about it, a lot of times people who are put in the caregiver position, they often already were in that position, in a sense that people look
Mhm.
to them to be the one to take charge, take care. Sometimes we can be in that. And I hate to use this, but Lynn Forrest talks about the victim triangle, right? Where
Mm.
we already are helper victims, in the sense, where we're
Mhm.
always trying to help someone, and now this bag falls on us that's bigger than we imagined. And so to be able to accept an offer for someone to help us when we're usually the helpers can be
Right.
very difficult. Right. Because
It
I know
is.
that, right. The mindset that comes in is like, well, no, I'm supposed to be helping, or I'm not supposed to need help, like, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that is one of the hardest things for caregivers to realize. And I think that kind of ties into finding like a supportive community, because you had mentioned earlier about caregivers working alone and
Mhm.
being burnt out, and
Right.
that's really the crux of the problem. They
Yeah.
really need to reach out. There are other caregivers who have been through similar situations.
Right.
They can understand what you're going through, they can make suggestions. um, you're not alone. You pretend like you are, but you're not alone in this
Mm.
caregiving journey. you need to share it. And there's no blame or any guilt or anything. It's just that you need to have that support in order to be your best
Yes.
for your loved one
Yes.
and for yourself. I mean, you've got to fill your cup up first before you can help someone else.
I love that. I love that. I love how you even talked about the no guilt, no shame. That's what I heard you
No.
kind of saying, that sense of, something must be wrong with me if I'm actually tired of taking care of my mother. We have that guilt language that we talk about, that inner
Hmm.
work you spoke about, like,
Yes.
oh, I should, the shoulds, don't should on yourself. I
Hmm.
should be able to be happy about taking care
Right.
of my dad. He was there for me, and it's like, we guilt ourselves out of taking
Hmm.
care of ourselves. Awesome. Well, do you have any final thoughts to share with the audience before we close out, Mary Elaine?
Definitely. Thank you, Mia. It's been a pleasure to be on your
Yes.
Business Heroes podcast. Thank you. Um, just to be as organized as you can so that
Mm.
you are being much more effective in what you're doing. And I think the other, in plan for your loved ones a medical condition or conditions and looking for community support in those areas. I think it's also really important to have that emergency binder and the daily caregiving notes together to give you the most accurate information about your loved one in the case of an emergency, because that information is really critical for the support your loved one may be getting in the hospital or an ER. And I think also just self care is so important. And there's no shame, blame, guilt involved here. It's you need help, get it, and fill your cup so you can help other people. You can't do it when you're so burnt out and you can't give anymore. There's just no way you can be effective in helping yourself or your loved one.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much. This
You're
is
welcome.
excellent, excellent information. Thank you for being willing to share, first of all, about yourself and your family, but then also some things that we can do practically right now. Even before joining the community, you have shared with us things that we can do to have a better journey and outcome. And if you'll just wait for us behind the scenes, behind the stage, I would love to just continue this conversation with you a little bit longer, Mary. But I want to say to the viewers, those of you who are watching and those of you who will watch, this is a serious thing. A lot of people are burning out because they're not getting the help and the resources that they need. And I really hope that you will connect to caregiverlifelinecommunity.com, because you've heard our presenter today, our business hero today, say there are resources for you. There's advocacy for you. There are people you can talk to personally that can help you in this caregiver journey. And listen, don't think to yourself that, oh, well, my person's on Medicare or Medicaid, or what about the finances? There are other people who have walked this journey before, and they are in the community that Mary has created, and they can encourage you. And you may even say to yourself, hey, wait a minute, it's not just me, Mia, Mary, Elaine, it's not just me. There's siblings, there's all these other things going on. I can't just do this. And you're right. You can't just do it by yourself, but you can be a part of the Caregiver Lifeline community, right? You can become a part of this. You can get this subscription so that you can be able to get the help that you need personally, okay? And get the navigation on how do I work with my siblings when somebody's struggling, in my family. How do I there are people who have gone before you, and they have information to share with you in this community. And so I really hope that you will, just become a part of that. It sounds really amazing. And so thank you so much again, Mary. I know you're not right here right now, but you can see me. I'm so grateful for you sharing your expertise with us and letting us know there's hope. And listen, reach out to Mary, okay? Mary Elaine. And so you have been watching the Business Heroes podcast with Victor and Mia, and Victor's not here, but he'll be back. And we will too next Sunday, same time, same place with another amazing hero. And didn't you love today's show? Like, I feel empowered. I really do. And so share this with somebody so that they can better be equipped to care for someone they love, okay? I'll see you next Sunday by God's grace. Blessings.